Okay, Sama, let's continue. The next paragraph. Okay, we stop here. The most striking thing about Mr. Duffy was that he was extremely tall. The second most striking thing was that he was extremely thin. So, what was the most striking thing about Mr. Duffy? First of all, it was extremely tall, okay? And the second thing was that he was very thin, okay? This always surprised George as he never came to the house without smelling something delicious cooking on the stove. So here George he was surprised because every time when he went to Mr. Duffy house he smelled delicious cooking on the stove, right? Now he wondered how Mr. Duffy stayed on thin when so much tasty food was produced for Mrs. Duffy's kitchen. So he surprised here because Mrs. Duffy's always produced food or tasty food for him. تمام? Now, Mr. Duffy peered at George over the rims of his glasses. Rims of his glasses, عفوا. So Mr. Hall peered at George of thick عفوا of over the rims of his glasses. So he had a large nose above a pointed chin and a broad forehead with thick dark eyebrows. So forehead here it means the front of the top part of your head or of the head. Okay, so a thick of eyebrows here اللي هو the line of hairs above your eyes. Okay, his short graying hair stood straight up from his head. He seemed to George like a wise old bird. Okay, so before we continue, so what was Mr. Duffy like and what did he wear? So he extremely tall and thin. Okay, so his short graying hairs stood straight up from his head. He seemed to George like a wise old bird. So like a wise bird. So how did he seem to George? He like a wise old bird. Okay, sharp-eyed and thoughtful. He always wore a long blue apron which made him look even taller and thinner. Okay, so what did he wear? He wore a long blue apron. Okay, thinner. It makes him taller and thinner. In the pocket was a short pencil which he sharpened from to be sharp here from time to time with a tiny penny knife. Okay, tiny here, small. So in this paragraph, it describes Mr. Duffy how he looks and how he behaves. Okay, all of this paragraph describes Mr. Duffy. Okay, now let's move. Hello, George, said Mr. Duffy. Hello, Mr. Duffy, replied George. Mr. Duffy beckoned George to a table against one wall. This was the table where Mr. Duffy put finished pieces of work. There was a large polished box made of golden colored wood and a small round table with intricately carved legs. Okay, beside the table was Sally's present. So, what three objects were on the table? There were a large polished box, right, and a small round table, and Sally's present. Okay, intricately it means complex. Okay, معقد. Now, beside the table was Sally's present also, okay? It was a small wooden, it refers to Sally present. It was a small wooden pot. So, what was the Sally present? A wooden pot with sailors, we know later, okay? Now, across the middle of the pot were three little pinches, and each pinch had three holes. Pinches here, it means اللي هو مقاعد يمس, okay? Holes in it. In each hole was a small round wooden sailor with a blue body, a round head, and a tiny sailor hat. They looked as though they were sitting on the benches. Mr. Duffy lifted out one of the sailors and showed to George. So the sailor had dark hair, rosy cheeks, and curly mustache. Okay, now how was Sally present? It was made from a small wooden round wooden sailor, right, with a blue body, okay, blue body, round head, and tiny sailor. Here, the writer describes the fun, the Sally's presents, okay. So they looked at as though they were sitting on the benches. Mr. Duffy lifted out one of the sailors and showed to George. The sailor had dark hair, rosy cheeks, and curly mustache. Okay, mustache here it means in the hair up your lips. Okay, he was winking in a very cheeky fashion. Winking هو معناه يغمز. Okay, fashion. So this paragraph is talking about Sally's present and where is it and how it looks like. Okay, all their faces were different. Some were old and some were young. Okay, so here the writer describes Sally's present were old. Some of them were old and some were young, but they all looked friendly and cheerful. Okay, so George grinned. It means a smile, a big smile at Mr. Duffy. Okay, Sal is really going to love this, he said. Okay, it refers to George. Okay, so in this paragraph, talking about Sally's present. Okay.